When my mom slapped the table and said, "You're not family anymore," I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just watched her push my sister's lavish wedding invitation across the glass top. "You're an embarrassment, and you are officially banned from the wedding." Everyone in the restaurant thought I'd lost my mind when I picked up my purse, smiled, and quietly said, "If that's what you want, Mom, I'll stay away." Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My mom thought banning me would protect her picture-perfect family image. My sister smirked, thinking she'd finally gotten rid of me. But what neither of them realized was that the entire dream wedding they were about to throw depended entirely on a secret contract only one person had signed, and I was holding the pen. My name is Clara. I'm 32 years old, an architectural designer living in Seattle, and for as long as I can remember, I was the daughter who kept her head down and built a life from scratch. My younger sister, Chloe, was the golden child, fragile, celebrated, and expensive. My mother, Evelyn, made sure the world revolved around Chloe's whims, while I was simply expected to clear the path. The night everything broke, we were sitting in a high-end restaurant downtown. The chandeliers gleamed and the crystal glasses chimed, but the air at our table was ice cold. Evelyn set down her wine glass, leaned over the white tablecloth, and pushed Chloe's embossed wedding invitation toward me. But she didn't hand it over. She pulled it back just out of my reach. "You're an embarrassment, Clara," my mother said, her voice dripping with calculated disgust. "Look at you. You dress like a contractor. You work constantly. You don't fit the image of the family we are building with Chloe's new in-laws." Chloe smiled, a slow, triumphant smirk, as she adjusted the diamond ring on her finger. "We need this day to be perfect," Chloe added softly. "And honestly, Clara, your presence just drags down the room." Then came the final blow. My mother slapped her hand on the glass table. "You're not family anymore. You are officially banned from the wedding." Everyone at the neighboring tables turned to look. They expected a scream, a sob, or a scene. Instead, I sat there, feeling a strange, soothing clarity wash over me. I picked up my purse, adjusted my coat, and looked my mother dead in the eye. "If that's what you want, Mom," I said with a calm smile, "I'll stay away." To understand how we ended up at that restaurant table, you have to go back 3 years to the night my father passed away. He left behind a mountain of hidden debts and a family estate on the brink of foreclosure. My mother was inconsolable, not because she lost her husband, but because she was terrified of losing her social standing. Chloe was 23 at the time, fresh out of college, completely accustomed to designer clothes and zero responsibility. While my mother wept and Chloe shopped, I stepped into the storm. I poured my entire life savings into paying off my father's back taxes. I spent sleepless nights restructuring loans, working 70-hour weeks at my design firm just to ensure my mother didn't lose the roof over her head. I sacrificed my personal life, my financial security, and my sanity to keep our name out of the mud. Evelyn promised me back then that she would never forget what I did. But gratitude is a fleeting emotion for people like my mother. The moment the crisis passed, I was relegated back to being the family workhorse, while Chloe remained the trophy. When Chloe got engaged to Julian, the heir to an old-money real estate empire, my mother's ambition went into overdrive. Chloe demanded a wedding at the Granite Ridge Estate, the most exclusive and astronomical venue in the state. The deposit alone cost more than a small house, and the venue required a massive personal guarantee and bulletproof financial backing before they'd even reserve the date. Evelyn and Chloe didn't have that kind of money, but they knew someone who did, the same daughter they were now throwing away like trash. When I got home from the restaurant that night, the silence of my apartment felt like a sanctuary. I didn't cry, and I didn't break down. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water, walked straight into my home office, and pulled out a thick leather binder from the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside were the original, stamped legal contracts for the Granite Ridge Estate. 8 months ago, my mother had come to this very office. She didn't bring anger back then. She brought tears and desperate pleas. She begged me on her knees to help Chloe secure her dream venue. She promised that if I helped them, I would be honored as the guest of honor, the sister who made it all happen. The management at Granite Ridge Estate wouldn't accept my mother's shaky credit or Chloe's non-existent income. To lock in the reservation, the venue required a primary guarantor with substantial assets. Desperate to keep the peace, I signed as the primary financial guarantor. I went even further. I put up the deed to my commercial design studio as collateral to secure the venue, the elite catering, and the celebrity floral arrangements. Evelyn and Chloe knew all of this, but in their arrogance, they assumed I was too weak to ever stand up to them. They thought that once the venue was booked and non-refundable, they could kick me to the curb, take all the glory, and hide me away like a dirty secret. They believed I would just sit quietly at home, paying for their fairy tale while they pretended I didn't exist. They truly believed they had won. They had no idea they had just walked into a trap of their own making. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. I put on my sharpest tailored suit, poured my morning coffee into a travel mug, and drove straight down to the executive offices of Granite Ridge Estate. I didn't yell, and I didn't make a scene. I walked in with the calm, focused composure of a businesswoman handling routine paperwork. The venue director, Marcus, greeted me with a warm smile, assuming I was stopping by to finalize the floral arrangements or check on the bridal suite. Instead, I sat down across from him and set my copy of the master contract on his glass desk. Marcus, I said smoothly, I need to exercise Clause 14B of the guarantor agreement. Marcus's smile froze, and his eyes widened. Clause 14B was a specific legal contingency I had insisted on including before putting up my commercial studio as collateral. It explicitly stated that if the primary guarantor withdrew authorization due to a breach of personal terms, fraud, or familial exclusion, the financial backing would be instantly revoked, rendering the reservation pending and unpaid. Clara, are you sure about this? Marcus asked, his voice trembling slightly as he reviewed the paperwork. The wedding is only 3 weeks away. If you pull your collateral and withdraw as the primary guarantor, the entire booking defaults. They'll have 48 hours to cover the full balance, over $120,000 in cash, or the event is canceled instantly. I am entirely sure, I replied, signing my name on the revocation form with a firm, steady hand. My mother made it abundantly clear last night that I am no longer part of this family. And since I am no longer family, I have no obligation to fund their fairy tale. The storm hit 3 weeks later, on the morning of the rehearsal dinner. I was sitting on my balcony, enjoying the crisp Seattle air with a book in my hand, when my phone started buzzing continuously on the outdoor table. It was my mother. I let it ring 3 times before calmly answering on speaker. Clara, what did you do? Evelyn screamed, her voice shrill and completely unhinged. Background noise exploded through the speaker, sobbing, shouting, and the distinct sound of venue security guards talking in stern, professional tones. Good morning to you too, Mom, I said smoothly, taking a sip of my tea. Don't you good morning me, she shrieked. We're at Granite Ridge right now with Julian's parents, the caterers, and the entire wedding party, and the front gates are locked. The manager told us our reservation was canceled and security is escorting us off the property. They're demanding a full payment of $120,000 in cash, or no one steps foot inside. I could hear Chloe in the background, wailing hysterically about her ruined dress and her social life being over. Clara, fix this right now, my mother ordered, her tone turning venomous. Transfer the funds immediately. You are ruining your sister's life. I leaned back against my chair, a small, cold smile forming on my lips. Mom, don't you remember what you told me at the restaurant? You slapped the table and said I'm not family anymore. You banned me from the wedding. That was completely different, she gasped. No, it isn't, I replied calmly. You said I was no longer family. I simply honored your wish and removed non-family members from my personal business contracts. The aftermath was glorious, swift, and utterly brutal. Without my commercial studio backed as collateral, Granite Ridge Estate stood firm. They refused to open the doors for a single guest without the cash up front. With only 24 hours to spare, my mother frantically tried to apply for emergency loans, but her terrible credit score ruined any chance of approval. Desperate to avoid complete social ruin, my mother and Chloe had no choice but to cancel the grand estate wedding entirely. They scrambled to host a pitiful, last-minute ceremony in a local public park with boxed lunches and cheap folding chairs. But the real damage wasn't just the venue, it was the truth getting out. Julian's family, who belonged to high society real estate circles, immediately started asking questions about why a supposedly wealthy family couldn't cover their own venue fees. It didn't take long for the truth to leak to every guest. Evelyn and Chloe were broke, living on borrowed credit, and leeching off the very daughter they had disowned. Mortified by the fraud and deception, Julian's parents forced him to sign a rock-solid, ironclad prenuptial agreement before letting him walk down the aisle. The grand illusion of my mother's elite family status crumbled into dust overnight. Chloe didn't get her fairy tale, and my mother was exposed to the entire city as a manipulative fraud. While they were left picking up the pieces of their shattered social image, I sat back in my quiet apartment, knowing that justice had finally been served, not with anger or violence, but by simply letting them face the real world without me holding them up. 6 months have passed since that disastrous weekend, and my life has never been more peaceful or fulfilling. Without the constant weight of my mother and sister dragging me down, my architectural design firm has flourished beyond my wildest dreams. I used the assets I freed up from that venue guarantee to purchase a stunning beachfront property along the coast, where I now spend my weekends designing homes for people who actually value my hard work and dedication. I've learned that blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to treat you like a stepping stone for their vanity. Sometimes, the most powerful form of justice isn't throwing a public tantrum or fighting back. It's simply stepping away, setting your boundaries, and letting manipulative people face the harsh consequences of their own selfish actions. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. If you were in my shoes, would you have pulled the financial backing, or would you have forgiven them? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.